Victory.
Hello and welcome, my name is Haas, and this is another Hearthstone deck guide. Goblins vs. Gnome has been out for about a month now, and I spent that entire month optimizing one specific deck, and of course, reaching Legend with it. Goblins vs. Gnomes, for those that don't know, is an expansion for Hearthstone that introduces over 100 new cards, almost all themed around goblins, gnomes, mechs, and, of course, explosions. The first thing I wanted to try out with Goblins vs. Gnomes were the new spare part cards. These are neutral spells effectively, though you don't put them into your deck directly, but generate them with other cards. They all cost 1 mana, and I'd say they're worth roughly half of a normal 1 mana cost card. I tried a few things, such as the new Gazlo Legendary, a Miracle Rogue deck focused on spare parts, but in the end, the best success I had was with a Mage. So this is a Mage spare parts deck with a heavy mech focus and utilizing the lovely legendary called Antonidas. It's all about converting spare parts into fireballs and setting your enemies on fire. To give you an impression of the effectiveness of this deck, here's an overview of the last 200 matches I did with this deck. As you can see, I had a solid 60% win rate. The toughest matchups are by far against priests. Those are pretty much unwinnable, but luckily they aren't that present in the current meta. Warriors too are rather difficult. It's basically literally a 50-50 against warriors. These have all been your standard control warriors. I haven't encountered any other kind this time around. Warlocks, by far the most present, are about a 60% win rate. Zoo Warlocks are a little bit above 60%, whereas Handlock is really another 50-50, though I didn't run into them that much, and I do think this deck can perform better in that department. On the flip side, Hunters are a very easy matchup. You have plenty of tools to trade with them and end up doing more damage than they can do generally. Other mages are also very easy. There are quite a few mage mech decks around, but most are a little bit more aggressive, which gives us a good edge as we're a little bit more late game. But enough statistics, let's go into a few matches. Okay, so first up a warrior. That's one of the worst matchups we can have, unfortunately. Again, 50% win rate against warriors. I would definitely give the advantage to them, though. We're gonna lose Antonidas here. They have such early, efficient clears. Arcane Intellect, not much better. That makes it very difficult to win. We have to start putting up a lot of early pressure, so I'm just gonna play the Clockwork Gnome here. Despite him probably having an early answer like a Fiery War Axe or a... Let's see what this is. Or an Armor Smith. Good. Yep, Armor Smith, there we go. That's pretty nasty, but we have to try. If we don't put up early pressure, we are going to lose. So we're just gonna play a Snowchucker here, hit him in the face. He'll likely trade off for our Clockwork Gnome, then he still has a 1-2. Then we can at least kill the Armor Smith. So this is fine. Nothing amazing. And a Fiery War Axe. Wonderful. Okay, so he's gonna hit a Snowchucker. Luckily, we do have a second one. He is now frozen. So yeah, I think we're just gonna play the Snowchucker. He cannot kill it with the Armor Smith unless he, like, Taskmasters it. But even then, we kill the Armor Smith. And because he is frozen, we are fine with playing this as it is. Early pressure really is key here. Because they, well, with shield block and such, they get so much armor, it becomes very difficult to win. Okay, this is great. We can just hit him in the face, stop him from using the weapon, and we can play the Mechanical Yeti, which is right on curve, so that's perfect. And it didn't seem like he had an answer for our Snowchucker. As you can see, Snowchucker's very nice against warriors, and Owl, that's fine. And then execute, I guess. Yep, execute. Okay, so now our Snowchucker, we can start trading with it. I think we'll just play the Azure Drake here, because it's right on curve. Draw some more cards. All these Arcane Intellects. I need some actual mechs, actually, next turn. Although if he uses the axe on the 2-1 Snowchucker, that's fine. And he does. So Sludge Belcher is a big problem. They have a lot of big problems for us. We could Fireball it. But we really want to keep the fireballs to push in that last bit of damage. So I think what we're just gonna do here is just draw more cards, actually, because Polymorph would be incredibly wasteful. They have so many big threats: Dr. Boom, Ragnaros, Grommash, whatever else they might be playing. So let's just draw some cards here. Flame Strike does exactly 5 if we want to. Next turn is 6, so he's unlikely to play anything big with Flame Strike really, but... as it is, our Azure Drake isn't going to die against the Sludge Belcher. So we're fine here, we're just drawing cards. Unfortunately, this is a much slower start than I would have wanted, but we're doing okay. We have a lot of cards, so that's always useful in a card game. We can of course ping the Sludge Belcher with our amazing hero ability. That leaves us at 5 mana then, so unfortunately we cannot play Mech Warper, Harvest Golem, Harvest Golem. We have... that costs us 6 mana after the cheating that occurs because of the great Mech Warper. Okay, let's ping him first. That is always going to happen here. So 5 mana. If we play the Mech Warper, he is going to kill it immediately for free, basically. It is a second Fiery War Axe, but I think we pretty much have to play this, and then we can play the Tinkertown Technician. That's better than a single Harvest Golem in this case. We have a 4-4 and a 2-3 that he is going to trade with. So he might use another Execute on the 4-4, but... Dr. Boom. Of course. Turn 7, you have Dr. Boom, you're gonna play Dr. Boom. That's pretty much how it goes. Now, we could Flame Strike here, but the chances of our Tinkertown Technician dying due to a Boom bot is incredibly big, so I'm not gonna do that. We could Fireball and then ping, but again, I want to really use the Fireballs for hitting his face, if we have to. Or rather, if we can. So I think what I'm gonna do is just play the Mana Worm and the Harvest Golem and then probably Polymorph Dr. Boom, so he has 3 1/1s, 2 of which, of course, can do damage to us, but since we have 3 minions, we have a fair chance at some of them surviving. So yeah, I think I'm just gonna Polymorph it. Next turn he has 8 mana, so the most obvious threat that he can play is, of course, Ragnaros. Might be something else, but we still have that Fireball. And we should have remaining minions on the field here after this. It's highly unlikely he can kill all of it. With just the board, that is. Unless he, like, he could Brawl, for instance, but that's fine if he does that. He doesn't really kill that much. There we have Ragnaros. My most hated legendary, coincidentally. Really not a fan of the Fire Lord. And, okay, well, just 1 damage. That's pretty good for us. Again, though, you know, if one of them died, that wouldn't have been a big deal. We have the Fireball here to trade with Ragnaros. We have the Archmage, which is gonna be our victory condition here. So I think we'll Fireball Ragnaros and then trade. The question kind of is, do we want to trade with the Mana Worm or do we want to trade with the Harvest Golem? On one hand, trading with the Mana Worm is safer against a Brawl or what have you. But on the other hand, the Mana Worm is a bigger threat that if he has to respond to it, that is great. So I think we're always going to Fireball him. And then I think we're going to hit him with the Harvest Golem. And then probably play Mech Warper Harvest Golem after that. So he might Brawl in that case. I think that's fine though, if he does that. If we can lure out a Brawl here, that's actually great, because we have Archmage and Antonidas. So let's just play these two. We can't ping him with a Fire Blast, sadly, but... If we can bait out the Brawl, then we can save Archmage Antonidas because we have that stealth from the spare part. See what he does. Shield Slam on the Mana Worm. That's great, because, again, the Mana Worm wasn't really going to be a huge threat. Well, it could have been. Harrison Jones, we can trade with that pretty easily. In fact, this is great. We can leave Archmage Antonidas as the single minion on the board here. We're going to trade these two, the Mech Warper and the broken Harvest Golem. Play Archmage Antonidas. And this is where the glory begins. We're going to stealth him. We're going to do 3 damage to the warrior with the switcheroo. Ah, the lovely fireballs. And then we're just going to return the Harvest Golem in case he brawls. Well, rather, now he can't brawl. We have 3 fireballs. We can do a lovely 17 damage next turn. Highly unlikely that that's going to happen, but we could do it. Here's hoping. Deathbite. He's just going to hit face. Okay, he's going to try and rush us down. Shield Main. Yeah, we're definitely killing the Shield Main. We can't leave that up, so he probably has 14 damage next turn. That leaves us at 2 because of the Death Rattle. Grommash becomes a 10. Chances of him having Grommash, well, you always pretty much have to consider them having Grommash. So the question is, do we want to trade with Archmage Antonidas into the shield main, or do we want to fireball it? Now, if he has Execute, Antonidas is going to die regardless. But if he has Shield Slam, and he used one so far, yeah, we're gonna hit him in the face. This way he can't Shield Slam Antonidas. And otherwise we'd lose 1 damage. That's really not a big deal. I think this is a bit safer. And we have really no means of dying right now. It's been going pretty well here. Glad of Pain. He's gonna draw a card. Gonna draw 2 cards. And there's the Execute. So we missed 1 damage. Hopefully that won't matter. Okay, we cannot kill him yet because he, of course, killed our stuff. Let's make sure he can't kill us then. So we have the Anoitron, that's very nice. So I think we're just gonna play Anoitron here. And then just flood the board. We just have to do a bit of damage to him. We have 12 damage at any given point, 13 actually. If we do the Blast Mage, he will get 2 cards. But we will also damage him for 2. That's the most likely outcome here. And I think that's fine, honestly, because we are going to win. There's no way he can actually kill us next turn. Doesn't matter if he draws 2 cards at this point. Okay, he drew 1. Yeah, he drew 1. So yeah, there's just no way he's gonna draw another one, of course, because he runs into the Anoitron. But there's no way we die at this point. And we have lethal, more than lethal, on the board. So he has to brawl. That's not what he's doing. Alexstrasza, that's not going to save him. And he should know this because we had like 3 fireballs from Antonidas. And there we go! We actually won against the Control Warrior. Again, 50% win rate, it can happen. This was a pretty good game. Although we didn't have all that much early pressure. Let's go to a second game. And a mage, that's absolutely fine. Although this hand is not fine, that's way too much endgame stuff. Let's get rid of the Azure Drake and the Flame Strike. We'll keep the Mana Worm in case he's running Clockwork Gnomes. He might be a Mech Mage, that's actually pretty likely. There's a lot of similar decks, so they tend to be a bit faster. Although having 2 Clockwork Gnomes and a Mana Worm is too many low drops. So we're gonna play the Mana Worm first in case he wants to play a Clockwork Gnome. That way we can trade into the Clockwork Gnome. The Mana Worm itself, staying alive, isn't all that important. And playing the Clockwork Gnome now, well, then we just trade for his. So this way, we should force him to Fire Blast next turn. Mech Warper, okay, coin Mech Warper, that's very nice. He didn't play a Clockwork Gnome, so he doesn't have any. We're just gonna play the Anoitron here, because anything else would be pointless. Frostbolt would have been very nice there. That would have been by far the best thing we could have picked up. Stable Portal. So next turn we can do Tinkertown Technician. Because the Anoitron is such a sticky card to play. We do want to kill the Mech Warper. I think we'll just trade for the Mech Warper. With both of these. Then he might Fire Blast into the Mana Worm. That's fine. We're definitely going to play the Tinkmaster Technician though. And then yes, then we'll trade both of these. So if he Fire Blasts the 1-1, that's great. We're not gonna have much use of the 1-1 other than clearing up the Clockwork Gnomes. Spider Tank, that works fine for us as well. We can trade that off. Again, forces him to do Fire Blast. We're gonna play the Mechanical Yeti here, I think, because it's right on curve. And using Frostbolt, we get Frostbolt ping. But it's not a big deal if he pings our 4-4. He already traded very nicely. And Mechanical Yeti is much more pressure. So the reason we normally win is because we have more late game than most of these. Like they run Spider Tanks and such, they run more early game cards. But at this point we're out-pressuring him, so that's even better. So we're gonna Frostbolt the Mech Warper for sure. Now we're gonna ping the Anoitron and just kill it. Leave these 2 up, because there's no way he can clear our Mech Warper unless he... Do we want to play the Clockwork Gnome? I think we want to play the Clockwork Gnome. He's on 5 mana next turn. He can ping any of these 3, but he can't ping them all. Unless he runs Arcane Explosion. Now that would be amazing. If he runs Arcane Explosion, he wins. because, well, that's pretty unique. Kel'Thuzad. Yeah, unstable portal. Okay, we'll just trade all of that in for Kel'Thuzad, I think. Let's draw some cards. Again, we're the late game here. As evident by his unstable portal and spider tanks, he's a much faster deck than us, or, well, a bit faster than us. So we can just trade off our 1 health minions here. So what we're gonna do here is play the Rusted Horn. That way we can just trade with the 4/1s, and then we force him to ping our 2/1. Next turn he's on 6 mana, so he's not gonna Flame Strike this, so we can play all of this. And we're doing so much damage to him. Completely outpressuring him, which is fantastic. And that's why one of the reasons why I don't like Unstable Portal that much. I mean, here he had a, it's so random, here he had a Kel'Thuzad. He is a very fast deck though, so they do tend to run Unstable Portals, you can get some amazing stuff with it. But in this case, it didn't work out for him. I think we'll just go for his face. Because that way, we're very likely to win. Next turn we can play Antonidas and the Whirling Blades. And we're 1 fireball away, so there's pretty much no way he wins at this point. We've won, basically. Because he has to clear everything on the board. If he does that with a Flame Strike, we still have a 2/1, you know, it's not gonna save him either way. Because all we have to do is play Antonidas, play a spare part, get a fireball, and win. They have no healing in this deck. Not at all, that doesn't fit in this deck. This has been a very easy match. Look, it doesn't matter that he... Although in this case he didn't even clear everything, so we got lethal on the board as it is. We didn't even get to play Antonidas, that's a bit sad. There we have it! A very easy match against mages, Mech Mage. We do tend to win against those. Very good win rate against them. And last, but not least, is the lovely, lovely deck. So first of all, we have Clockwork Gnome, your first 1 mana cost card. It is also your first spare part generator. They're just very solid 1-drops you can play for a bit of early game pressure. If they die, they give you a spare part. They're of course also mechs, so they synergize with cards that, well, synergize with mechs. Very good, not much else to say. Mana Worms, also a, well, it's your other 1-drop card. There's not a huge focus on Mana Worms in this deck, though you do have enough spare parts to mostly make them a 2/3 or a 3/3. They can definitely turn into big threats in longer matches, though most of the time they actually bait the removal, which is quite nice. Otherwise, they're there to clear the Clockwork Gnomes of enemies. Those are played quite a lot by hunters, by mages, and what have you. They're just a solid 1-drop that you can play for a bit of early game pressure. Frostbolts. Frostbolts are very good trading cards. It allows you to kill any 2/3, 3/2, a 4/4 with your hero ability, of course. They're very solid for trading. Also, at turn 10, you can play 2 fireballs and a frostbolt, which tends to be more than enough to kill your enemy. Very good cards. Annoyatron, one of the better mechs actually in the game, I'd say, because they are very sticky and therefore synergize very well with, again, cards that synergize with mechs, like the Tinkertown Technician, like the Goblin Blast Mage, and they also protect your other cards, which is very important against, say, a warrior or a hunter with the Fiery War Axe or the Eaglehorn Bow. These become, well, annoying for them to deal with. So they're very solid to play in that way. They're not that great at stopping early game Zoo, for instance, but they are pretty good against hunters. Mech Warpers. Mech Warpers, very good, solid 2 mech drop that you can play. It, of course, allows all your other mechs to be 1 mana less, which allows you to cheat a bit with mana. It's a very solid card. 2 damage is more than enough for early game pressure. 3 health is more than enough for it to stay alive most of the time. And again, with the Annoyatron, very nice. You can mostly play a Mech Warper and a Clockwork Gnome if you just drew into it, what have you. Or Mech Warper, coin into Annoyatron or Snowchucker. Very nice way to cheat with mana. Then Snowchuggers. These are mage-only cards. I didn't initially think them to be that good until I tried them out, and they proved to be very valuable against warriors and hunters because they completely lock down, say, their Fiery War Axe, their Deathspite, their Eaglehorn Bows. They're very nice for that reason. Otherwise, late game, they still can be like chump blockers because you can run them into, say, Dr. Boom and freeze the Dr. Boom and buy you a bit of time. Otherwise, they're just very solid 2-drop mechs because there's no other mech at 2 mana that is a 3 health mech. Meaning that these are very likely to actually stay alive as well. Very good card. Arcane Intellect, it's not much to say here, it allows you to draw more cards. I think it's better than Unstable Portal in this deck by far. This deck is a bit more late game oriented, partially because of the Arcane Intellect, and it allows you to compete better with other control decks. because of the Arcane Intellect. It does, of course, also buff your mana worms and such, but that tends not to be a huge deal. Then we have Harvest Golems, the good old Harvest Golems that have been around since the classic days, which was like a year ago. They've gotten a bit of a makeover. With Goblins versus Gnomes, they're now also mechs, which means they, again, synergize with cards that synergize with mechs. So you play a Harvest Golem, it is going to stick around on the board. There's pretty much no way they're going to remove it at turn 3. That's highly unlikely. Very good card. Tinkertown Technician, your first card that synergizes directly with other mechs. I suppose Mech Warper also is one. It allows you to play a 4/4 generally at turn 3, which is fantastic, and it gives you a spare part. Great card. Fireballs. Fireballs are generally your way to win. You of course get a lot of them with Antonidas, but if you don't, if the match is a bit faster, these are more than enough. That's 12 damage in your deck right there that can pass any taunt or what have you. Very good card. Often also allows you to trade with bigger minions. Say they play a Doomguard, you can Fireball and ping with your hero ability, but most of the time these are used to blow up your enemies directly. One Polymorph, a second one. I've tried that for a bit, but against all of the early aggression cards, 2 Polymorphs is really bad to use. So I still want to use one against the control matchups. If you remove the Polymorph, what have you, you're going to be significantly worse against Control Warrior, against Paladin, against Druid. So you generally do want to have that one Polymorph in this deck. Goblin Blast Mage, a very good new Goblins vs. Gnome Mage card. It does 4 damage randomly, but most of the time, you know, you have your ping ability. So you can generally clear anything that has 2 health, 1 health, of course. If you have an entire enemy board filled with 1 health minions, this is great. Otherwise, against Control Warrior, if you can play this at turn 4 and just do 4 damage to his face, that's great. It is still a 5/4, so that's a very good card. Mechanical Yeti. Mechanical Yeti is an upgraded version of the old Yeti in many ways. It gives you a spare part, both players a spare part, you have to keep in mind. Sometimes you get a bit screwed over because the other guy got a very good spare part. But most of the time, you are the one that benefits from the spare part a lot more. So these are very good 4-drops that you can play. They put up a lot of pressure because they have to deal with a 4/5. And they get you a spare part even if they die. Very solid mech cards. Azure Drakes. Azure Drakes haven't been in this deck since the beginning. They took a bit of time to really make their way into here. They were a bit too slow against early aggression, but in the end they proved to be very valuable. Drawing that extra card is very important against really most decks that you're going to be facing. The extra spell damage can be very useful with a Fireball. Oftentimes I've won a game because I had like 2 extra damage on both my Fireballs. Otherwise they're just still solid cards. A 4/4 body on the field is more than enough to put up pressure. Very good cards. Then Sylvanas Windrunner, I don't think you've seen me use it in the past games. Sylvanas Windrunner is here to deal with other control decks. It's a very good 6-drop. You can also play, let me find it, Toshly. I used this for a bit. But in the end, I found Sylvanas to be just significantly better than Toshly, even though Toshly does give you spare parts and is the only reason we don't have a full spare part deck, I guess. Stealing your enemy's minion is way too valuable, and this is going to bait out a lot of removal. It's just a very good 6-drop to play, very good against control decks, not very good against early aggression like Zoo and such, but you know, that's how Hearthstone works, that's how card games work. You have to balance your deck after all. Then we have Flamestrike. This is against the early game aggression. This is against Zoo, against Hunters sometimes. You do want to be running one of these, because if you don't, well, you can try it. But from what I've found, you just lose too much against Zoo and whatnot if you don't have that one Flamestrike. They are, of course, generally pretty bad against any control decks, though against Paladin nowadays with the Quartermaster, for instance, with all the 3/3 Silverhand recruits, this is still very valuable. Against Control Warrior, it's a very poor card though, but even then you can probably still use Flamestrike and clear, say, a Ragnaros if you have a 4-drop on the field. So it's good enough to have one of them in your deck. And then we have the amazing Archmage Antonidas. This is your victory condition, your main victory condition if you didn't put enough pressure on early on in the game. It is going to give you a Fireball anytime you play a spell, which means spare parts, which means spare Fireballs, plenty of Fireballs for everyone. It's a great legendary in this deck. Use it. Yeah, and that's the deck. My name has been Haas. Again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.